The doll was found in the attic of an old house while her grandmother was sorting through her things. She was beautiful, made of porcelain, with bright blue eyes and real hair. The girl who received her named the doll Agatha. A week later, her parents noticed the child talking to herself. Or rather, to someone sitting in the corner of the room. When asked who she was talking to, the girl would answer, Agatha. She tells me about the old days. When she was alive. At the beginning of the summer, the Green family moved into an old Victorian house on the outskirts of a small town in Maine. They inherited the house from their grandmother, who died at the age of 92, leaving her grandchildren with a pile of old junk that had accumulated in the attic and basement for years. Tom Green, his wife Catherine, and their 8-year-old daughter, Emily, moved in early June, when the trees were already thick with foliage and the air smelled of lilacs and freshly cut grass. The house needed some renovations, but the Greens didn't complain. Tom was an architect and could handle most of the work himself. Catherine taught at the local school, and Emily happily explored every corner of the new home. For a child, it was a real adventure. The attic was opened in the 3rd week. Tom set up a ladder, climbed up, and was the first to peer into the dark space, smelling of dust and old wood. Sunlight streamed through a small window, illuminating piles of boxes, old furniture, rolled-up rugs, and a host of other things no one remembered. There's a whole warehouse in here, he called down. We'll be clearing it out all week. Emily, of course, went first. She loved those moments when she could find something unusual, hidden from prying eyes. She was rummaging through old books, trying on hats from a tattered box, and twisting yellowed postcards. And then she saw it. The doll sat in the corner on an old child's chair, as if waiting to be found. She had a porcelain face with perfect features, blue eyes that seemed almost lifelike, and real blonde hair braided into 2 neat pigtails. Her dress, once white and lacy, was now gray with age, but still retained traces of its former splendor. The doll looked straight at Emily. "Mom, Dad, look," the girl exclaimed. "How beautiful." She grabbed the doll and hugged it to her chest. Tom and Catherine exchanged glances. Something about the toy was unsettling. Unsettling. But Emily looked so happy that no one dared object. "Can I keep it?" the girl asked. "I'll name her Agatha." "It's a beautiful name, isn't it?" "Of course, dear," replied Catherine, though a strange feeling stirred within her. "But first, you need to wash and clean her. She's old." "No." Emily recoiled, clutching the doll tighter. "Agatha doesn't like water. She told me." Tom laughed, but it was forced. "Told me?" "Emily, dolls don't talk." "This one talks," the girl answered seriously. "Not out loud. She talks to herself. She says her name is Agatha, and that she's been waiting for us. Waited a very long time." Catherine was about to say something, but stopped. Her daughter's gaze was too mature, too serious for an 8-year-old. She looked at the doll. The blue eyes stared back. Or was it just her imagination? That evening, the doll stood on the nightstand next to Emily's bed. The girl quickly fell asleep, tired after a day of adventures. Catherine adjusted the blanket and stood in the doorway. The moonlight fell directly on the doll, and in that light, her face seemed alive. Her lips were slightly parted, her eyes sparkled. Catherine shook her head, pushing away the silly thoughts, and closed the door. That night, she had a strange dream. A girl in a white dress stood by a pond, looking at the water. She turned, and Catherine recognized the doll's face. The same perfect porcelain face, the same blue eyes. The girl smiled and said, "I'm here. I'll play with your daughter. We'll be sisters." Catherine woke in a cold sweat. Tom slept peacefully next to her. The clock struck 3 in the morning. A soft voice came from Emily's room. The girl was talking in her sleep. Or maybe not. Catherine was listening. Agatha, tell me more about that day, Emily whispered. About how you fell into the water. How cold it was. And then it got dark. And then you woke up here. Catherine jumped up and ran into her daughter's room. Emily lay with her eyes open, staring at the doll. It was sitting on the nightstand in the same position. But now its head was turned toward the door. Right toward Catherine. Mommy, Emily said, without turning her head. Agatha says she dreamed about you. That you were by the pond. She says she liked you. Catherine scooped her daughter up and ran out into the hallway. Emily laughed. Mommy, you're so funny. It's just a doll. It can't do anything bad. But Catherine wasn't so sure anymore. The morning after that night began as usual. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and Tom was already fiddling with tools in the living room, trying to fix the old chandelier. Catherine went down to the kitchen, made coffee, and tried to convince herself the nightmare was just a figment of her imagination. The stress of moving, the fatigue, the old house with its creaks and shadows. It all made sense. Emily came in for breakfast with her doll. She sat Agatha on the next chair and poured tea into a toy cup she'd found somewhere in the boxes. Agatha likes her tea with milk, the girl said. And 2 spoons of sugar. That's how it always was when she was alive. Tom, still reading the newspaper, chuckled. There you go again, my dear. They're not stories, Dad, Emily replied seriously. Agatha tells me everything. She had lived in this house for a long time. She had a mom and dad, but they were always working. She played alone. And then she went to the pond and fell. Catherine froze, raising her cup to her lips. The pond. The same pond she dreamed about last night. She hadn't yet told Tom about her dream. Emily, how did you know about the pond? She asked cautiously. Agatha told me, the girl shrugged. She says the water was cold and dark. That she called for her mom, but her mom didn't come. And then it got quiet and dark. And then she woke up in the doll. Tom put the newspaper down and looked closely at his daughter. Darling, it's just a scary story. Maybe you've heard it or read it somewhere. The house is full of old books. I haven't read it, Emily pouted. Agatha tells it herself. Her voice is as quiet as the wind. You just don't hear because adults don't know how to listen. Catherine and Tom exchanged glances. She saw the same worry in her husband's eyes that she felt herself. After breakfast, while Emily played in her room, Catherine went up to the attic. She wanted to find information about the doll, about where it came from. Boxes of toys were piled in the far corner. Catherine rummaged through them all, but found nothing of the sort. Only old teddy bears, wooden horses, blocks. Agatha was one. Special. At the bottom of one of the boxes, Catherine found a yellowed photograph. It depicted a girl of about 7, with blonde hair braided into pigtails. She was sitting on the porch of this house, holding the doll. That very one. A porcelain face, a lace dress. The girl was smiling at the camera, but her eyes seemed sad. Catherine turned the photograph over. On the back, written in ink, was Agatha and her doll. 1925. Catherine's hands were shaking. The girl's name was Agatha. The same as the doll. Or was the doll named after the girl? Or was it her doll? And what did "was alive" mean? She went downstairs and found Emily doing something strange. The girl was sitting on the floor in her room, with old scraps of fabric, buttons, and ribbons arranged around the doll. Agatha was sitting in the center of the circle, and Emily was whispering something. "What are you doing, dear?" asked Catherine. "Agatha is teaching me to sew," the girl replied, without looking up. "She says all little girls used to be able to sew. She used to sew dresses for her dolls. Then her mother took her needles away because she pricked her finger. But it didn't hurt. She got used to it." Catherine sat down next to her. "Emily, how does the doll know about the needles? About Mommy?" "She knows everything," Emily said, looking up. There was something new in her gaze, something Catherine hadn't noticed before. Calm. An almost adult understanding. She was here. She saw. She was waiting for someone to come and play with her. Now we're friends. Forever. That night, Catherine couldn't sleep again. She lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. Tom had long since fallen asleep, tired after a long day. Somewhere, a clock struck 2. And suddenly, Catherine heard footsteps. Light, childish, they came from the hallway. She stood up and slipped out of the bedroom. The hallway was empty, only moonlight filtered through the window. The footsteps faded. Catherine approached Emily's room and opened the door slightly. The girl was asleep, her arms spread out. Silence reigned all around. But the doll wasn't sitting on the nightstand where they'd left her that evening. She was sitting on the windowsill, facing out. Moonlight fell on the porcelain face, and Catherine could clearly see the smile on it. She ran into the room, grabbed the doll, and threw it into the corner. Emily woke up and sat up in bed. "Mom? What are you doing?" "It's okay, dear," Catherine whispered, hugging her daughter. "I just thought." "Agatha's angry," Emily said, looking into the corner where the doll had fallen. "She says you shouldn't have done it. That now it'll hurt her." Catherine looked into the same corner. The doll lay face down, its arm twisted unnaturally. And then, right before Catherine's eyes, its head slowly turned. A soft crunching sound was heard, like old bones breaking. The porcelain face looked straight at her. The lips moved. Silently, but Catherine read, "You'll regret this." Catherine screamed. She grabbed Emily and ran out into the hallway, slamming the door behind her. Tom was already standing in the bedroom doorway, sleepy, disheveled, a baseball bat in his hands. "What happened?" he shouted. "Did someone break in?" "The doll," Catherine breathed. "It moved. On its own." Tom looked at his wife, then at his daughter's door, then back at his wife. "Cat, are you serious? It's just a toy. You imagined it." "I didn't imagine it." Catherine trembled. "I saw her turn her head. And her lips moved. She said I'd be sorry." Emily, huddled against her mother, was silent. She looked at her door with a calm, almost bored gaze. "Dad," she finally said, "Mom was just scared. Agatha isn't mean. She just wants to play." But her mother abandoned her, and Agatha felt the pain. Tom sighed and lowered the bat. "Okay. Everyone go to bed. We'll sort this out tomorrow. Cat, take Emily to our room. We'll close the door to hers." And so they did. Emily fell asleep between her parents, and Catherine stared at the ceiling all night, listening for every rustle. But the house was quiet. In the morning, Tom was the first to enter his daughter's room. The doll lay face down on the floor, where Catherine had dropped it. Tom picked it up and examined it. "Nothing special," he said. "An ordinary porcelain doll. Old, of course, but nothing out of the ordinary. Catherine, you need to see a doctor. You're stressed, overtired. You haven't been yourself for the past few days." Catherine wanted to object, but realized she had no proof. Only her words against the doll. And her daughter, who was looking at her with strange eyes. She decided to do something different. When Tom went into town to buy building materials, Catherine took Emily into the kitchen, poured her some cocoa, and sat down opposite her. "Darling," she began carefully, "tell me about Agatha. Everything she tells you." Emily took a sip of cocoa, licked her lips, and looked at her mother with the same strange, calm gaze. "She's talking about her mother. About how her mother never came when she called. About how the water was cold. She says she was afraid. And then it wasn't she who was afraid, but those who stayed. Because now she will always wait." "Wait for what?" Catherine asked. "A friend," Emily smiled. "She waited for her friend for 100 years. And she waited for me. Now we are sisters." Catherine's heart sank. She remembered the photograph she had found in the attic. The date on the back is 1925. 100 years ago. "Emily, do you understand that a doll can't be alive? It's just a toy, a piece of porcelain and rags." "She says you'll say that," Emily bowed her head. "She says that's what grown-ups always say. And then, when it's too late, they cry. But now it's too late." Catherine rose from the table. "Where is the doll now?" "In my room. She said she'd wait for me there. We'll play until you calm down." Catherine ran upstairs. Emily's room was empty. The doll stood on the nightstand, neatly straightened, her dress adjusted. Her blue eyes looked straight at Catherine as she entered. And suddenly, distinctly, a sound was heard. A quiet child's laughter. Catherine froze. The laughter was coming from the doll. The doll's lips didn't move, but the sound was real, alive. "Can you hear me?" whispered a voice, thin as a mosquito's squeak. "Finally. I've waited so long for someone to listen to me. Your daughter is a good girl. She will be my sister. And you can go. Or stay. I don't care." Catherine grabbed the doll and threw it against the wall. The porcelain shattered. The head rolled into the corner, hair scattered across the floor, eyes bulging. Silence. Emily ran into the room. She saw the broken doll, and its face distorted. But it wasn't the face of a child. It had become old, angry, alien. "Why did you do this?" the girl screamed in a strange voice. "She was my only friend. Now you will die." Catherine recoiled. Emily took a step toward her, then another. Her eyes darkened, almost black. "You're not my mother," the girl hissed. "My mother died 100 years ago. And you're just a stranger." She raised her hand, and Catherine saw that her daughter was clutching a shard of porcelain in her fist. Sharp as a blade. "Emily," Catherine whispered, "come to your senses. It's me, your mother." "No," the girl replied. "My mother's out there, in the pond. And I'm going to her." She swung. Catherine screamed. And at that moment, Tom burst into the room. He grabbed his daughter's hand, pulled out the shard, and hugged the girl. Emily thrashed, screaming and howling inhumanly. Tom held her, not letting go, until the screams died down and the girl went limp in his arms. They called an ambulance. Emily was taken to the hospital. The doctors said she had a nervous breakdown and needed observation. No one believed the story about the doll. Only Catherine and Tom knew the truth. A week later, they sold the house. They packed up and left Maine forever. Emily spent a long time recovering, but gradually returned to normal life. She didn't remember what happened that day. And no one reminded her. Only occasionally, as she drifted off to sleep, did Catherine hear a child's quiet laughter. And in the darkness, she saw two blue eyes, seemingly looking at her from nowhere. 3 months passed. The Green family settled in a small town in upstate New York, in an ordinary modern house without attics or old secrets. Tom found a job in his field, Catherine got a job at the local library, and Emily started a new school. They tried not to remember the nightmare they'd had in the old house. But sometimes Catherine would wake up in the night and lie awake for long periods, listening to the silence. Emily had changed. Outwardly, she remained the same cheerful girl, but something in her gaze had shifted. It became more mature, deeper. She rarely spoke of the past, and if someone asked about the doll, she would simply shrug and say, "It was just an old toy." Catherine wanted to believe that all of that was behind her. But one evening, while sorting through boxes of unpacked things, she found a strange object. At the very bottom, under layers of clothing, lay a small shard of porcelain. The doll's blue eye. He looked at her with the same vivid fury he'd shown that day. Catherine clutched the shard in her fist and ran outside. She threw it in the trash, weighed it down with other bags, and returned to the house, convincing herself it was just a coincidence that the shard had gotten lost among her things. That night, she had a dream. A girl in a white dress stood by a pond, waving. Emily stood next to her. They held hands and looked at Catherine. The girl smiled and said, "You can't throw me away. I'm always with you now." I'm inside her. Catherine woke up at 3 in the morning. The house was quiet. She got up and went to Emily's room. She opened the door slightly. Her daughter was curled up asleep. Everything was calm. Catherine was about to close the door when she suddenly noticed something small and shiny on the nightstand. She came closer and went cold. That same blue eye lay on the nightstand. It stared at her from the wooden surface, moonlight playing in its depths. Catherine grabbed the eye, ran to the kitchen, threw it in the trash can, and doused it with water. She sat there until morning, staring at the can, afraid to move. In the morning, she told Tom. He tried to reassure her, saying it was just her imagination, that there could have been more than one shard, that she herself had brought them into the house along with her things. But Catherine saw his face. He was afraid, too. They decided to sell all the old things left by their grandmother. Give them away, throw them away, burn them. Tom built a fire in the backyard and spent the day burning boxes of junk. Catherine stood nearby and watched the flames consume the remnants of the past. Emily watched from her window. A strange expression crossed her face. When the last box turned to ashes, she turned away and went to play with her dolls. New dolls, bought in a store. No porcelain, no real hair, no real eyes. Another 2 months passed. Life returned to normal. Emily made friends at school, went to extracurricular activities, laughed and played like all children. Catherine almost calmed down. Almost. One day, while sorting through Emily's clothes before washing, she found a small object in her jacket pocket. It was wrapped in a handkerchief. Catherine unwrapped it and saw a porcelain hand. A tiny, childish hand, broken off a doll. It had been washed and carefully wrapped. Catherine clutched the handkerchief in her fist and went into her daughter's room. Emily was sitting on the bed, reading a book. "What is this?" Catherine asked, showing her the find. Emily looked up. Her gaze was calm, almost indifferent. "Agatha asked me to keep it," she said. "As a keepsake. So she wouldn't forget. Emily, Agatha is gone. We burned all her remains." "Not all," the girl smiled. "I saved a few pieces. She asked me to. We are sisters, after all." Catherine dropped her pen and stepped back. "You remember that day? When you wanted to stab me with a shard?" Of course, Emily bowed her head. "I remember everything. But I didn't want to hit you. I wanted you to leave. so Agatha and I could be alone. But you didn't leave. And now we will always be together. You, me, and Agatha. Catherine ran from the room. That same evening, she demanded that Tom move them again. To another state. To the other side of the country. Anywhere, just as far away from this place. Tom agreed. They sold the house, packed up, and moved to Florida. A new city, new sunshine, a new home without a history. Every day, Catherine checked her daughter's pockets, her backpack, her toys. She found nothing. Emily behaved perfectly, was an excellent student, smiling and hugging her mother in the evenings. But sometimes, when Catherine entered her daughter's room at night, she imagined a small figure sitting in the corner. Watching. A year later, Emily received a new doll. She bought it herself with her own pocket money at a thrift store. It was old, shabby, with faded hair. But its eyes were blue. Very lively. "Mom, look," Emily said, holding out the toy. "Does it look like Agatha? I'll name her Agatha. After my friend." Catherine looked at the doll and saw her fear reflected in its glassy eyes. "Throw it away," she whispered. "Please." "I can't," Emily hugged the doll to her chest. "She's alive. She told me." Catherine closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she heard a child's soft laughter. And a voice whispering, "I'm back. We're sisters now. Forever."